On the day the billionaire Aries-eyed, loved for 8 years, held her wedding of the century with a childhood best friend, I was killed in a car accident. When I opened my eyes again, I was 18. In this life, I decided to treat her like a total stranger and put all my energy into building an empire. But suddenly, she couldn't handle being ignored. Today was the wedding of Serena Sterling, the crown jewel of the Sterling family. I watched her on the giant screen, breathtaking in her white gown, and bit my lip. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. 8 years of devotion, and in the end I lost to the insurmountable gap between our worlds. Serena, I hope you're happy. In that moment, I truly completely let go. I raised my beer can to the cold screen, offering a silent final toast. But a second later, a black SUV lunged forward. There was a deafening crunch, and I was sent flying. My vision spun as the world flipped upside down. My body went numb, and the only thing left in my mind was a high-pitched, piercing ring. Soon, everything went dark. I thought I was dead, gone in a sudden, senseless accident. But the next second, my eyes snapped open. Warm sunlight bathed my skin. I was sitting on a lush green lawn, surrounded by the familiar sights of a high school campus and faces that were impossibly young. "What's going on?" I muttered. "Didn't I just get hit by a car?" I propped myself up, looking around in a daze. This was my old school, Westview High. I was surrounded by former classmates, or rather current ones. They were vibrant, their eyes bright with a spark that hadn't yet been extinguished by the grind of adult life. They didn't look like the hollowed-out versions of themselves I'd seen at our last reunion. Is this 8 years ago, senior year? As the fog in my head cleared, I realized I had traveled back in time. Was this a dream? I pinched my arm hard, let out a sharp ow, and felt the sting. The pain was real. I actually went back. I whispered. It was just like the stories. I had a second chance. I followed the crowd back to the classroom, sat through a full afternoon of lectures, and biked home to find my parents looking young and healthy. By the time I hit my pillow, I was certain I was 18 again. This was senior year, a life that should have been a boring cycle of school and home, but was once the most carefree time of my life. This was also the year Serena Sterling transferred to our school. She ended up in my class. At first, no one knew she was the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the country. With her porcelain skin and natural elegance, she captivated every guy in the building. I fell for her hard and fast, pursuing her with a reckless, desperate passion. My persistence eventually wore her down, and she opened up to me. We spent 8 years together. There were countless beautiful memories until the day I heard she was marrying a tech conglomerate. I was dumped, cut off like a dead limb. Remembering the sweetness and the eventual betrayal felt like a serrated blade twisting in my chest. Pathetic. I chuckled to myself after a long silence. She was a star in the high-stakes world of the elite, and I was just a moth drawn to her light. Our meeting was a fluke of fate meant only for a temporary romance, not a lifetime. She was always destined to return to her world. Seeing her wedding on that screen in my past life had finally broken the spell. Serena Sterling, I whispered to the dark ceiling in this life. Let's just be strangers. I made a vow right then. No more chasing. I will be a ghost in her world. Wait, a thought struck me. If I'm back, I have the ultimate cheat code. I know the future. I can make a killing. I remembered how Serena's inner circle and her parents looked down on me. In this world, being a good man wasn't enough. Money was the only language that mattered. Poverty was the original sin. I'm going to be rich, I vowed, clenching my fists. Filthy rich. No one is looking down on me this time. I spent the night frantically scribbling on a legal pad, listing every major opportunity over the next few years. Crypto hasn't peaked yet. EV stocks are still early. AI and robotics are gold mines. I filled pages with ideas. Where to start? Write a mini-game. I decided to develop a simple viral mobile game. Low overhead, fast returns. I'd studied computer science in my previous life, so the coding was second nature. I dove into the work immediately. The keyboard clacked all night until it felt like the keys were smoking. The next day, I called out sick. As a returner, I already knew the curriculum by heart. There was no point in rotting in a desk. I'd show up for the exams later, even if I never graduated. I knew I could dominate the market. Degrees are just paper. Capability is the currency. After 3 days of straight grinding, the first game was done. I called it Match-a-Mojo. It was a tile matching game. The first level was suspiciously easy, but the second level was a geometric nightmare designed to make players obsessively frustrated. I knew it would go viral. To kick it off, I spammed the local university forums and high school group chats. I spent a week straight as a shut-in, ignoring my worried parents' knocks on my door. By the 7th day, I couldn't dodge them anymore and dragged myself back to school. "Caleb, look, who is that?" My roommate leaned in the second I sat down, practically drooling as he pointed toward the front of the room. I followed his gaze. A girl with soft wavy hair and eyes like polished glass sat there, looking exactly like the Serena from my memories. I knew exactly who she was. While I was gone, she had transferred in just like before. The school's Discord server was already melting down. Every guy was calling her the Westview Goddess. "She's a new girl, Serena. Man, she is unreal," my deskmate rambled. I didn't say a word. I looked away, opened my textbook, and started reviewing. In my last life, I was so mesmerized. I had confessed my love within 3 days. This time, I stayed dead silent. While I was focused on my work, Serena suddenly turned around. Her gaze locked onto me, her brow furrowed with a complex, deep expression. She stared for a long time before slowly turning back. At lunch, I was napping on the lawn when a shadow blocked the sun. I blinked open one eye. I'd see Serena standing over me, squinting down at me. I immediately closed my eyes and shuffled a few inches away like a caterpillar to stay in the sun. "Excuse me, are you the one who asked me to come here?" Serena's voice was soft, melodic, and perfectly composed. I opened my eyes again. She was holding a pink envelope. I realized what was happening. Some guy had probably written her a love letter and wanted to meet her here for confession. Since the spot was empty except for me, she assumed I was the sender. "No," I said flatly. I closed my eyes again. Right on cue, a guy clutching a bouquet of roses walked up. "Serena, I really like you. Will you go out with me?" The guy's confession was loud and desperate. I peeked through a sliver of an eyelid. It was Liam Miller from the class next door. In my past life, Liam was one of my biggest rivals for Serena's attention. Liam was a nice guy, respectable and polite. Unlike me in the old timeline, I was shameless. I'd send good morning texts every single day, write cringy poems, and even send her suggestive jokes to get a reaction. Serena acted cold, but she secretly loved the attention. If I want to win her now, I knew exactly which buttons to press. "I'm sorry, Liam. I'm not looking to date anyone right now," Serena said, her voice a polite wall. Liam looked crushed. As Serena turned to leave, I shut my eyes tight to pretend I was asleep. But whether by accident or on purpose, her heel came down right on my finger. I hissed, sitting up and clutching my hand. I was about to snap at her, but she didn't even look back. Her long legs carried her away with a purposeful stride. It was as if she hadn't even noticed she'd stepped on someone. Seriously, it took her to walk away. I shook my hand, watching her receding figure. I didn't chase her. Part of me just didn't want the drama anymore. That night, I checked the ad revenue for Match-a-Mojo. The numbers were climbing so fast, I actually jumped on my bed and did a little victory dance. I would never have to answer to a boss again. Ding ding. My phone buzzed. A friend request on iMessage. The handle was Serena S., and the profile picture was unmistakably her. Even without my memories, I would have known. Why is she adding me? I wondered. In a last life, I had to beg for weeks just to get her number. Now, I hadn't done a thing, and she was reaching out. Wait, did she reincarnate too? The thought sent a chill down my spine. Was I the only one who came back? I stared at the screen for a minute, then locked the phone. Even if he did come back, so what? I muttered. We're better off as strangers. She was the one who threw away 8 years in the old life. I owed her nothing. The next day, I got to school early. I had been sitting there for a while when Serena arrived. She had dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept. The moment she walked in, her eyes locked onto mine. I immediately looked away. Something felt off about her today. During the break, she cornered me on the way to the restroom. "Caleb, do you have a problem with me?" she asked. Her tone was direct, almost accusatory. She knew my name. Not surprising. She could have asked anyone. No, I said simply. Yes, you do. She stepped into my space, her eyes searching mine. You're avoiding me. You won't even look at me. What? I was startled. Was I that obvious? I kept my voice neutral. We barely know each other. Serena, you're overthinking it. At that, her gaze dimmed. She whispered to herself, right? I just moved here. We haven't even been introduced. Maybe I'm just imagining it. She seemed to be trying to convince herself. Anyway, Serena, if you can move, I actually have to use the restroom. I was about to burst. I didn't have time for a psychological thriller, but she didn't move. She stood like a barricade. Then, let's be introduced properly. I am said, I just transferred. She held out a hand gracefully. Serena, I'm literally about to have an accident, I urged. She didn't budge. She stared at me with an intensity that suggested she wasn't letting me go until I acknowledged her. I considered pushing past, but then I remembered. Serena was a black belt. In the last life, I saw her take down a drunk guy twice her size with a single throw. Fina, I choose life. I am Kayla Bennett. Nice to meet you, I said hurriedly. She finally smiled, a small triumphant curve of her lips. She tapped her phone. I sent you a request last night. Accept it. I pulled out my phone and hit accept with an annoyed sigh. She let me pass, looking satisfied. For the next few days, she left me alone mostly. I'd catch her staring sometimes, but she didn't approach. Liam Miller, however, hadn't given up. He kept coming by our class to discuss homework. Both of them were top-tier students, so they had plenty to talk about. They started looking like the it couple of the senior class. Watching them laugh together, realization hit me. Was I the one who got in their way last time? In the previous life, I was like a guard dog, never letting Liam get close. Without me sabotaging him, they were hitting it off. Poor guy. I sighed internally as Liam left the room with a smile. Serena's future belonged to a billionaire in New York. Whoever dated her now was just a temporary character in a tragedy. My life was getting better without her. I even started talking to the class president, Julia Vance. Julia was cute in a quiet way. Black-rimmed glasses, a messy ponytail, and no makeup. In the future, I knew she'd become a high-powered attorney, a total powerhouse. But right now, she was just a girl inhaling a burger across from me in the cafeteria. She didn't care about her image. She was a food-is-fuel type of girl. When she finished, there was a single grain of rice stuck to the corner of her mouth. I saw my chance to tease the future legal shark. Before she could react, I reached across the table. My finger brushed her lip for a split second. Julia froze. She touched the spot I touched, her eyes wide with shock. I suppressed a grin and held up my finger. There sat the grain of rice. She realized I wasn't being a creep. I was just cleaning her face. A gentleman would have just told me, Julia said, tried to regain her professional composure, though her cheeks were pink. Then I did something that made her jaw drop. I brought that finger to my own mouth and took a bite. It looked for all the world like I had just eaten the rice off her lip. Julia's face went from pink to a deep crimson. To her, it felt like an indirect kiss. You freak, she hissed. Heads turned. People were whispering. Julia glared at me, but I just held my hand out again. The grain of rice was still there on my index finger. I hadn't put it in my mouth at all. I used my finger to wipe my mouth. I said slowly, wiggling my middle finger, the rice is on this one. Julia realized she'd been played. She looked like she wanted to strangle me, but couldn't help but huff a laugh of annoyance. Nearby, Serena was watching the whole exchange. Her expression was unreadable, a storm of complicated emotions swirling in her eyes. Serena, you okay? Liam asked from across the table. Serena snapped out of it. She took a breath and forced a smile. I'm fine. I'm not really hungry, actually. I'll see you later. She left her tray, barely touched, and dumped the food. She had no appetite left. She walked toward the school lawn, her steps heavy. She sat down in the exact spot I usually use for naps. What is wrong with me? She whispered, clutching her chest. Why does that guy make me so angry? She couldn't explain it. When I ignored her, she felt empty. When she saw me with Julia, she felt like she wanted to flip a table. Is it because of the dreams? She wondered. Ever since she moved here, she'd been dreaming of a guy who looked 90% like me. In the dreams, he was always by her side. She'd act tough, but in the dream, she was incredibly happy. The poems he wrote, she'd read them over and over in her sleep. She found herself tearing up. She wiped her eyes quickly, looking around to make sure no one saw. Lately, she'd been waking up with a wet pillow every morning. She felt like she was losing her mind. Final exams came and went. I walked out of the hall and stretched. "How'd it go, Caleb?" Julia asked, walking up with a smile. "Not bad," I said. I was staying low profile. "When the results are out, let me know. We should look at colleges together," she said before heading off. We had gotten close over the last few weeks. We were in that more than friends, less than lovers zone. I started to leave, unaware that Serena was behind me, her gaze sharp and lingering. While other kids were rushing to get their driver's licenses, I already had mine. I'd used my sick days to take the test early. That evening, I went to a dealership and bought a new SUV. It cost me 70 grand. All cash, all earned from the game. I could have bought a Ferrari, but I didn't want the attention yet. In my past life, Serena bought my cars. In this life, driving a car I bought with my own hustle felt incredible. My bank account had over $3 million in it, and it was growing by the hour. Matchmojo was a gold mine. I drove to a small office building downtown. I had a company now, just 3 of us, but the profit margins were insane. I walked in to find Sarah Simmons and Chloe Stevens working. I knew them from my old life at Sterling Corporation. They were the most reliable people I'd ever worked with. "Caleb," Sarah looked up. We'd only talked online until today. I grinned. "Hey guys, thanks for the hard work. Dinner's on me tonight." I took them to a high-end steakhouse. I gave them the big picture speech. Stock options, the future of the company, the works. I wasn't just selling a dream. I was giving them a piece of the pie. Later, Julia texted me. "Why aren't you at the driving school?" "Everyone's there." I sent her a photo of my license. "Already got it." "Julia, what? Since when? Why didn't you tell me?" "Me? You didn't ask." I spent the next few days traveling. I found an indie animator in a cramped apartment. This guy was a genius. In the future, his mythology series would break the box office. "I'm in," I told him, handing him a check for $500,000. He nearly fell out of his chair. He was broke and desperate. I was his angel investor. "If you need more, call me," I said. I moved on to Bitcoin. "It's only $100 a coin," I asked Sarah over the phone. She sounded cautious. "I think it could hit 500. "It's risky, but buy." I interrupted. "Buy everything. As much as you can get your hands on." I knew it would hit 60,000 one day. This wasn't a gamble. It was a harvest. My real life was just beginning. And Serena, her life was changing too. But a hidden force seemed to be pulling us back on the same path. We met again at the graduation dinner. Liam Miller was there, even though he wasn't in our class. People were pushing him and Serena together. "You guys look so good together. Both. Go. You'll be the power couple of the Ivy League." Liam was beaming. Serena was silent. I sat next to Julia, laughing and joking. "Julia, I know a place where the cats do backflips. Want to see?" "Shut up, Caleb. You're just trying to get me to a hotel." "Wow, your mind is in the gutter. It's a circus at the zoo. I can't believe you'd think that of me, you jerk." As we laughed, Serena's face darkened. Every time I looked over, she was glaring. When I got up to use the restroom, she followed me. I was washing my hands when she suddenly appeared. Before I could react, she grabbed my arm. She was stronger than she looked and shoved me into a stall in the ladies' room. "What the hell? This is the women's room," I hissed. Serena's eyes were fierce. "Stay away from Julia Vance." My heart skipped. Was this the old Serena coming out? "Wait, did you come back too? What are you talking about?" "Come back from where?" She looked genuinely confused. Maybe she didn't reincarnate. Maybe she was just being herself. "You don't own me, Serena. Mind your own business." She didn't like that. She grabbed my wrist and put me in a professional lock. I yelled in pain. "I'm making my business," she snapped. She sounded exactly like the possessive girlfriend I remembered. "Serena, we aren't even dating. Let go." Suddenly, she softened. She let go and looked horrified. "Caleb, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me." She looked like she was about to cry. I didn't wait around. I bolted out of the stall. I spent the summer traveling with my parents, Maldives, Egypt, the works. Life was good. Then I showed up at the University of Miami for orientation. And there she was, Caleb, long time no see. Serena was standing by a palm tree waving. My head started spinning. Serena, your grades were perfect. You were supposed to be at Yale. What are you doing in Miami? I was afraid, she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, that a certain someone would get stolen by another girl. Are you talking about me? I asked, testing the waters. I don't know, she said cryptically. It was like a script. No matter how I tried to change things, the plot was pulling us together. She started following me everywhere. One day, I was napping on a bench, and she just leaned over and kissed me. Serena, what are you doing? I couldn't help myself, she said softly. I don't like you, I snapped. That's fine, she smiled. I like you enough for both of us. I even dyed my hair bright blonde. She used to hate that. She just laughed and told me I looked hotter than ever. She bought the apartment across from mine. One night, I got wasted. She helped me home. And in my drunken haze, I did what 8 years of habit told me to do. We ended up in bed. The next morning, she was smug. You're responsible for me now. If you leave, I'll tell the cops you forced me. It was an accident. This isn't love. Serena. Maybe not, she said. But it'll do. I gave in. I couldn't fight the plot. But I started acting like a jerk. I woke her up at 3 a.m. to exercise. I trashed the apartment. I even accidentally killed her favorite plant with boiling water. I wanted her to hate me, and after a month, it worked. She left a note on the table and vanished. You're free. I stared at the note. Something was wrong. Normally, a breakup note says it's over or I hate you. You're free sounded like a sacrifice. She had seen through my act. She knew I was trying to push her away. So why did she leave? I did some digging. She hadn't gone back to New York. She had gone to London. And Tristan Thorne, the man she was supposed to marry in the old life, was also in London. They were childhood friends. So she realized she loves him after all. I thought, good, the cycle is broken. For years passed. I was in the back of a Maybach chatting with Julia Vance. She was wearing a sharp Chanel suit. She had graduated from law school and been recruited by a massive new conglomerate, the Apex Group. She didn't know I was the CEO. No way. Julia gasped when we pulled up at the headquarters. Caleb, you're the ghost everyone's talking about. You think a girl with your grades gets a corner office on her first day just because of luck? I teased. I'm talented, she argued, though she was grinning. Suddenly, the driver spoke up, sounding tense. Sir, a black SUV has been following us for 6 blocks. I looked back. My blood ran cold. It was the same model that had killed me in the first timeline. Is the plot coming back for me? I wondered. Pull over, I told the driver. I stepped out of the car. If this was fate, I'd face it on my own terms. Sure enough, the SUV accelerated, roaring toward me. The driver was aiming to kill, but a split second before it hit me, a red sports car roared out from a side street. It slammed into the side of the SUV, flipping it over in a shower of sparks and glass. The crash was deafening. I ran to the red car. The airbags had deployed. I pulled the driver out, terrified. It was Serena. Serena's perspective. The lost years. Tristan Thorne always wanted me, but to me, he was just the boy next door. I moved to a small town to get away from him, and that's when the dreams started. Dreams of a guy named Caleb. It felt so real. The love, the pain, the tragedy. When I saw him in that classroom, I nearly fainted. He was real, but he looked at me with such hatred. I tried to win him over. I followed him to Miami. I forced myself into his life. But after we slept together, the dreams became memories. I remembered everything. It had been 8 years. The Thorne family's blackmail. My father told me back then that the Thornes had rigged our business to fail. If I didn't marry Tristan, the Stirrings would be destroyed and Caleb would be removed. I married Tristan to save Caleb's life. But Tristan lied on our wedding day. He had Caleb killed anyway. He told me that night he touched what was mine. He had to die. I didn't take it lying down. That night, I took a hidden gun and ended the Thorne bloodline. Then I went to the morgue, kissed Caleb's cold lips, and followed him into the dark. When I realized Caleb had also reincarnated, I knew why he hated me. He thought I chose the money. He didn't know about the threat. I found out I was pregnant after that night in Miami. Our child, I left to protect them both. I went to London, not for Tristan, but to hide. I gave birth to a son and left him with my most trusted friend. Then I returned to New York to dismantle the stirrings and the thorns from the inside. But the thorns found out about the child. They targeted Caleb again. I flew to Miami the second I heard. I saw the black SUV. I didn't think twice. I rammed it as I felt myself slipping into unconsciousness. I saw Caleb running toward me. This time you live. I woke up to the smell of bleach. Caleb was sitting by my bed, reading a notebook. My diary. Caleb, I croaked. My throat was like sandpaper. He closed the book and touched my cheek. His eyes were full of tears. Serena, you're awake. The diary. You read it. Your assistant brought it. I'm glad she did. He knew now. He knew I never betrayed him. I'd spent 2 lifetimes loving him. Don't worry, Caleb said, his voice hard and cold. I've taken care of the rest. Caleb hadn't wasted his second chance. The Apex Group was a monster. He had crushed the Thorne family stocks, exposed their tax fraud, and revealed their hitman. By the time I was discharged from the hospital, the news showed Tristan Thorne and his father had taken a permanent exit from their penthouse balcony. Caleb was the oak tree I could finally lean on. I have a surprise for you, I told him as we drove home. I had my friend bring a 3-year-old boy to the house. When the little guy looked at Caleb and shouted, "Daddy," the look on Caleb's face was the best thing I'd seen in 2 lifetimes. Story complete.